guys, back again, another video. We're gonna start doing part 2 to the head replacement assembly and all that stuff. I'm back. I have my impact with the battery on it so I can get that bolt back off. That's where I stopped last time. Please see part 1 if you are confused. I do have a separate video on doing head studs and stuff like that as well. That's really detailed. This is just kind of the full thing while it's in the car, so a couple things there. But yeah, that's pretty much how that goes. So the thing that I wasn't able to do was get the harmonic balancer bolts off. I had used it to turn the engine twice so that the belt could be properly tensioned. That is part of the service procedure for getting that on there. And that's why I did that. But as far as getting everything squared away with it, here we go. Obviously you can't put the front end back together with that bolt being in place. Doing all this stuff with one hand. So I was not able to break that bolt loose, and it's not on there tight. Like, I didn't torque it down, I just turned the engine with it with the ratchet, but that was enough for it to be on there and me not to be able to get it back off. So now all I'm gonna do is pop this on here, boom, and now we are good to go with that. So I can put the rest of the front of this engine back on. Well, I'm gonna have to get this off with 2 hands. There we go. Pop that out. Put that right back here. Just can't stress enough whenever you're doing anything on a car to put things labeled and stuff like that where they're supposed to go, because that is just supposed to help you turn it over or turn it. So I gotta put the harmonic balancer back on, all this other fun stuff for the front. So bear with me because I don't have my big tall stand to record stuff with, so I'm gonna be using this. Set it up somewhere, hopefully I can get a decent angle, and we'll go from there. The steps that we're gonna be doing that you'll see in time lapse is we're gonna be doing the harmonic balancer itself. Wait, no, we got the lower engine cover, and then the harmonic balancer, and then the top engine cover. Well, honestly, that can go on whenever. And then the harmonic balancer bolt, and then we're good on the front, with the exception of your accessory belts. I'll do that probably at a later time. Maybe I'll do that in the time lapse. I'm not sure how I feel about putting it on yet. So just to give you guys the process. But yeah, engine cover, harmonic balancer bolt, all down there. And then you put in your pulley for the water pump and your belts to tighten all these stuff up and tighten all this up and get it back functioning. Then you can throw the top cover on there too with the cam angle sensor, and front's good to go. Alright, so we got the front of the engine back on. As you were seeing in that time lapse, I did decide to just go ahead and put that stuff back on there for the belts and all the covers and stuff. 2 things. One, I didn't put the fan back on because I'm keeping as much room here as possible until I don't need it anymore. But the fan is right there, so keep that in mind. Second thing, this. This cam angle sensor is the most delicate sensor in this whole fucking engine swap. I shit you not. Before you take this off, always try to mark the areas that it was lined up at. As you can see, I marked them on the bolts from where I previously had it lined up, so that when I put it back together, I would be able to line it up in the same exact way. That way I don't have to do too much tweaking and stuff like that with the cam angle sensor once I get it started and stuff like that again. So just another tidbit. Next thing that I'm gonna do is valve train. So I wanted to do this without the exhaust side in the car so that I could really get close and take a look at everything I'm doing, because before we took this car apart and replaced the head gasket, it was running on 4 out of 6, it was possibly running on 4 out of 6 cylinders. We had cylinder 3 where the spark plug wasn't fully seated, so I don't know if that one was getting spark or not, but cylinder 4, the ignition coil, the spark plug ignition, what is it, the ignition coil contact spring or whatever, was not in there, so that one wasn't firing at all. And those springs are a pain in the ass to deal with for the LS swap. I'm trying to see if I got them here. I think that I have them all inside the boots. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not sure where I put them things at, but I think they're over here somewhere. I just got to check. But as far as the contact springs, they're a headache to deal with. They pretty much are just like, oh, there, that's where I put them. Right here. They're a headache to deal with, and they pretty much just don't want to connect to anything. So it's kind of hard to get them to stay in place before you put the actual ignition coil over it. And based on what I'm seeing here, it looks like I'm missing 2. I know one of them is in a bag. I think I might have just moved this one without like knowing. So I'll have to search for them, but I do have extras just in case. But that's what I'm talking about. Like those little springs will cause one cylinder not to fire. So I want to take my time and make sure that I get all of them contacting as they're supposed to make sure that this car is running, because I don't really know how else to make those grip either the spark plug or the little plug on the inside of the ignition coil better. Finally was able to get these in. I had a different strategy for these, where I basically took the spring, wrapped it around the spark plug by itself, and then put the spark plug in there and put the boot over it. So those springs are actually around the spark plugs. It took me maybe 45 minutes just to do these back 4 because of how, I don't know, incorrect these springs are. These are Toyota Super Springs. And when I did my research, I was told you could use both the stock rb25 springs or the Toyota Super Springs, and neither one of them were working. I had this problem with both. So these are Toyota Super Springs. I made them fit on these last 4. These 2 should be contacting each other, but they are not on the coils like this, because I didn't do this strategy for these 2. But there's no way that that spring is not touching the ignition coil and the spark plug at the same time. So if I have a problem, I'll just reset these 2. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the other ones back on and finish the valve train, put the cam caps on it, and we'll be good to go. So I'm putting the half moons in. I just did that one, as you can see. This is the other one for that side. Don't forget these. They help keep the oil from going out the back of the head and stuff. So as you can see with the red stuff in there, there is sealant that is recommended that you put in here. I would definitely recommend doing that. I have Nissan, the same gasket maker I use for the oil pan. I'm using for these because it's made for oil. It's going to be blocking oil. Same thing. So what I'll do is just run a bead across the inside of that, and you stick it in there. When you put the valve covers back on and torque them down, that's what will fully, seat them and hold them in. Also, in addition to the backs, you also want to kind of do the fronts. It's just recommended, it's not required, but you can see that on the edges of the cam caps in the front here, it's definitely not a bad idea to put a little bit of sealant right there too, just to help keep that stuff in there, in addition to the actual valve cover seal. So just wanted to stop and do that before I finished it out. I wanted to put the half moons in the back before I put the 2 ignition coils back there, just to give me a little extra room. So I'm gonna do those, then pop out the last 2 ignition coils, and then we're back at it. Put the valve covers on after I've put a little bit of seal in here, and then the head and valve train is back on, and it's just putting the exhaust back. Back on. As far as this, the only thing left is just to connect all the ignition coils, but that ain't nothing. So exhaust back on. A couple things that I want to make sure before I put in, which may push this video back or not if I have to buy some. But you see how the wastegate has this block off port? Some of these are missing, if I'm remembering correctly. That's a water port, that's a water port, and that's fine. But which one is it? Here. I'm pretty sure this is an air port that needs to be blocked off, and I don't have a block off in there, and I don't remember it being an extra one for me to put one in there. So that's one thing. I'm gonna have to go through, do that for this one and that one, just to make sure everything is all good with that as well before I get to putting this on. So I'll do that off camera. Alright, based on that last one, you just saw me put everything in, On the hot side, we got pretty much everything good, turbo and all that stuff. The only thing I gotta do is not really part of the, putting the head stuff back on, but I gotta route all the vacuum lines to the boost controller. And, I'm leaving this side of the turbo, the compressor, I'm leaving this a little loose until I connect the intake piping. Once the intake piping is on there, then I'll tighten that. That way I know that it's good. And then I gotta connect the O2 sensor, which is just a plug. But yeah, so that's just the boost controller for me. I'm not gonna put that in this video. That's pretty much all that it takes for the part 2. And since the engine is all back together and we're looking good, we got some improvements here and there. Should be testing, not first start, but testing to see if it starts back up again and idle's decent, and then just filling fluid and doing some flushes as we get ready to take this thing to a dyno day. Almost everything that's needed for this to be complete for the dyno day is done, so we don't have too much left. I'm getting pretty excited. For the people that do want to know what all is left on this thing, outside of doing the boost controller, I have to fully, this was temporary wiring, so I have to fully wire this and protect it from the heat, of course. And that'll pretty much be it for this side of the engine. Boost controller, of course, clock the turbo and stuff like I just said. Intake, and then we're good. I fixed my power steering issue. I got a custom fitting made so my feed doesn't have to wrap around the dump tube over there. As we move on to the intake side, the only things that I need to do here, of course, I got to put the radiator back in, fill that up with fluid, and connect the upper and lower radiator hoses. And I have to make a proper, this bracket does not work for the throttle cable, so I have to make a custom bracket for the throttle cable so that I can get that in there and have it good. I have to connect the vacuum lines that are on this side. I think it's just this one that's left though. I think the other ones are already in there, if I'm not mistaken. Nope, looks like I might be missing one. But I think that one goes to the boost controller actually. So I got that to do on this side, and that's pretty much it for the engine. As for the car, I forgot to throw Loctite on the drive shaft bolts. Definitely don't make that mistake and try to drive it, because if that drive shaft comes off, well, you might not be here. So yeah, I gotta do that. I gotta clean up a lot of wiring. This is all headlight wiring, so I'm not worried about that. But as you guys that watch the channel seen my spaghetti for the fuel pump wiring, it works. It's just very ugly and hazardous and stuff like that, so I'm gonna clean that up too. And I think that's pretty much it. It's just cleaning up the wiring for everything and getting that stuff done, and then we're good to start putting fluids in and bleeding clutch and brake lines and stuff like that, so that we could get this thing possibly on its first legit drive before taking it for dyno day and stuff. So there ain't gonna be too many more videos before we're starting to make car meets and cruise and all that type of stuff content. Very excited. But for now, I'm gonna say like, comment, subscribe, follow the build. Until next time.